Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the sheer mechanics of human perception, desire, and consciousness straight from our source material. Have you ever wondered why we constantly chase certain pleasures, or why we just boil over when things don't go our way? Or, better yet, how our mind literally builds the reality we experience every single second? Well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to map out the entire journey of a thought, from the exact millisecond it hits your senses, all the way to the profound realizations that can actually free your mind. Let's get into it. Okay, picture a big, bright slice of rainbow cake. When you see something like that, you instantly anticipate a sweet, delicious taste, right? But here's a critical, kind of mind-bending insight from the source. The pleasantness you experience isn't actually in the cake itself. I mean, the cake is just matter. That feeling of gratification, that pleasantness, is entirely fabricated by your mind. The sensory input comes in, sure, but it's the mind that layers on all the enjoyment and craving right on top of that base-level taste. To really grasp how our minds construct reality, we're going to follow the journey of a thought through 5 key stages today. First, senses in the mind. Second, inside the 6 faculties. Third, the world of desire. Fourth, need versus greed. And finally, 2 kinds of understanding. Starting with Section 1, Senses and the Mind, the foundation of perception. Let's see how our bodies actually interface with the physical world. So, it all kicks off with the 12 Dhatus. Basically, we have our 5 physical sensory organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And these constantly interact with 5 external stimuli: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. But then we have the mind. The mind acts as this dual internal and external processor, dealing with memory and recall. Together, these make up the 12 fundamental elements, or dhatus. Now, our source makes a brilliant comparison here. It says our sensory organs are basically like oceans that can never, ever be filled by external stimuli. We literally spend our entire lives chasing pleasant sensations just to feed these organs, but there's no finish line. They are never permanently satisfied. And, that lack of satisfaction leads directly to our next concept, raga. When those sensory signals hit the mind, they trigger raga, which is a cognitive craving. It's an intense attachment that drives us to chase that endless satisfaction. But it's absolutely crucial to realize this craving doesn't come from the external object, like that slice of cake we talked about. And it doesn't even come from the sensory organs themselves. Raga is a purely mental impulse, urging you to act physically or verbally to get pleasure. The whole thing is generated right inside the mind. On the flip side, when we experience displeasure, or when we just can't get those endless sensations we're craving, it can rapidly escalate into Dvesha. This is aversion, frustration, or anger that flares up when circumstances oppose our desires. And just like craving, this anger isn't coming from the outside world, it's manufactured completely in the mind. The source notes that Dvesha is incredibly dangerous because it almost always leads us to commit harmful physical and mental actions. Then we have the third primary catalyst in this cognitive trio, maha, which is a state of deep delusion or ignorance. When you combine maha with raga and dvesha, so attachment and aversion, you get a massive roadblock. Buddhist doctrine identifies these 3 as some of the most detrimental mental fabrications out there, simply because they completely block your progress. You literally cannot maintain a calm, balanced mind when it's totally clouded by attachment, anger, suspicion, and pride. Moving on to Section 2, inside the 6 faculties, processing reality. Let's pop the hood and look at the actual mechanics of how a basic external object turns into a complex mental state. Here is the exact chain reaction that builds a thought. First, an external object makes contact with a sense organ. This creates an impression, known as rupa. Second, that physical impression triggers a sensation at the sensory site, that's vedana. Third, this gives rise to perception, or sanya, which fires signals off to the mind. Fourth, the mind processes those signals through mental formations, called sankhara. And finally, the whole sequence culminates in consciousness, vijnana, which is your actual realized awareness of the object. This 5-step process is firing off constantly, forming the bedrock of every single reaction we have. What's fascinating here is that our senses do not act as lone wolves. They're deeply interdependent, and the mind relies on all these integrated inputs to construct our reality. The source text gives a really relatable example. Think about the last time you had a bad cold. Your sense of smell was shot, right? And suddenly, the taste of your favorite food was practically gone. Why does that happen? Because your sense of taste doesn't operate in a vacuum. It requires the integration of smell, memory, and expectation, all coordinated by the mind. If just one faculty is impaired, your entire cognitive experience shifts. All right, section 3, the world of desire, control, and illusion. This brings us to a really frustrating paradox about how we try to navigate our lives. So think about this glaring paradox. Our internal world, our mind and body, is largely completely out of our control. I mean, can you command your mind to focus on a single thought for 5 minutes without it wandering off? Most of us definitely can't. And despite a multi-billion-dollar skincare industry, we can't command our bodies to stop aging or tell our hair not to turn gray. Yet, knowing all of this, we constantly try to exert control over the external world. And when the outside world inevitably fails to do what we want, we react with anger. The takeaway? Since we can't even control our own internal biology and thoughts, trying to control outside forces is a totally futile trap. And this endless, frustrating pursuit of external control and sensory pleasure traps us in what's called Kamaloka. This translates to the world of desire or sensual existence. It's a realm entirely characterized by delusion and this exhausting chase for pleasure through the nose, tongue, and body. For context, Kamaloka is one of the 3 realms of existence, the Trilokia, sitting alongside the realm of material form and the realm of formless existence. But Kamaloka is where we experience those really sharp, volatile highs and lows of sensual pleasure and pain. Which leads into section 4, need versus greed, biology or craving. Here, we really need to draw a subtle but absolutely essential line. Navigating our desires comes down to understanding the difference between biological need and psychological greed. A biological need is tied strictly to your body's physical requirements. Drinking water when you're thirsty, generating energy, or turning on the AC when it's 45 degrees Celsius outside just to keep your body at a healthy 37 degrees, those are fundamental biological needs. But psychological greed, Raga, is a whole different ballgame. Cranking that same AC when it's already cool outside purely to show off your wealth and status, which the text calls mana, that crosses the line into greed. Eating to get nutrients is a biological need. Endlessly chasing decadent food just to satisfy the mind's desire for pleasure long after you're actually full, that's Raga. Now, the source offers a beautifully clarifying takeaway here, proving that this philosophy isn't just about denying yourself all joy. In fact, it explicitly states there are no restrictions on consuming the sensations you receive. It says, enjoy what you have, but do not keep chasing them repeatedly to gratify a mind that is merely seeking more pleasure for its own sake. So it is perfectly fine to experience and enjoy a pleasant sensation. The real danger is getting stuck on the treadmill, letting your mind drag you into this desperate, endless chase for more. Finally, section 5, 2 kinds of understanding, refining the mind. Let's look at how we can actually resolve this endless cycle of chasing and reacting. According to the text, there are 2 distinct levels of understanding. The first is Anubodha. This is surface-level, intellectual knowledge. It's based entirely on accumulated memory, like reading a book or learning a concept. It's useful, sure, but it is limited. We have to transition from Anubodha to Pativedha. Pativedha is a profound, transformative penetration of reality. It is seeing things exactly as they truly are, completely beyond names, labels, and conceptual thoughts. You can't just memorize this deep realization. It only arises when the mind is fully developed and purified from those cognitive defilements we were talking about earlier. Because if we don't actively work to refine our understanding, the consequences are pretty stark. The source tells us that constant vigilance is required against greed, hatred, and delusion. If we drop the ball, we risk falling into akusala, which are unwholesome actions. These unwholesome deeds, or papakama, happen when everyday cravings escalate into their absolute most intense forms: lobha, which is intense greed, intense hatred, and deep ignorance. And when we let these forces take the wheel, the text warns that beings become trapped in the 4 lowest, most painful realms of Kamaloka, that sensual world of desire. So, as you move through your day-to-day, just observe the things you crave and notice the things that frustrate you. Remember that these feelings are, by and large, fabricated right between your ears. Ask yourself, are you merely reacting to your senses, driven by superficial intellect in the endless loop of craving? Or are you striving for Pativedha, a deeper, purified realization of your own mind? Ultimately, the choice of how you perceive the world is entirely up to you.